So let's say that you decided to not save up for the anniversary and for the Lost Belt 6 stuff, and you decided to take some of your hard-earned savings and throw them over at the Musashi banner that just jump scared us literally out of nowhere over here on the NA version of the game. Believe you me, I know the draw of Musashi. I have summoned on 3 of her different banners, and I've gotten crushed every single time. So it's not like I don't sympathize with you guys and not being able to not summon for Musashi, but is it actually worth it? Well, we're going to talk about that in today's video. Believe it or not, Musashi is still getting buffs over on the JP version of the game that still fix some little issues she has here and there. And I think we're really like maybe one buff away from Musashi becoming just absolutely nuts bonkers, because right now she's really good, but I think we're on that like edge of her becoming just one of the most broken servants in the game. Then again, we'll have to see what type of buff they actually throw her way. They could throw her a really mid buff that does nothing, or they could give her a buff that literally does everything. I mean, you know how these rank up quests usually go. It's either really, really good, or it's Eric Bloodaxe. Before we begin though, if you have not already, make sure you leave a like on the video and you subscribe to the channel for that sweet, sweet daily FGO content. Your boy is always out here trying to make sure that you are informed about what's going on in both versions of the game. But if that's not enough, if the daily FGO content grind just is not enough to keep you satiated, I do stream every weekday over on my Twitch, which is going to be linked down in the description down below, usually starting around 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So make sure you come check that out, give it a follow over there so I can see you guys in those Twitch streams. With all of that being said, let's start diving into Musashi's kit, starting off with her hits. And you'll notice there's something a little bit interesting about her kit. She's got a triple buster deck. Yeah, that's right. Musashi is literally a berserker in disguise. Now, this is really good because it means outside of her NP, she's able to bust her Brave Chain with just her face cards alone, and it does mean that she can do some really good damage. But you may be concerned saying, well, that's really good, we could do a lot of damage, but how are we supposed to refund our NP? I mean, sure, we have a really nice natural NP gain stat of 0.87% and a really nice 3-hit arts card, but is that going to be enough to get the job done? I mean, sure, it looks like it'll refund some really nice NP, but is it going to be enough? And what if I told you, spoiler alert, it actually is more than enough to get the job done because of some of her skills? But before we move over to there, she can also gen a couple of stars with that 3-hit quick card, 10% star gen, also has a buff for kind of that. The 4-hit extra attack's not the greatest because, as we know, the extra attack is a composite card that gens stars, NP, and does big boy damage. And while 4 is kind of nice for genning some stars, I really would like to see that 5-hit tacked on there. Also, something I'm noticing right now as we're just kind of doing a Musashi video, why does she not have a costume? She's been out for the longest time and she's such a popular servant. I know that we have Summer Musashi, but why out of like all of the characters in the game does she just not have a costume? I feel like that's just a video I could rant about where I'm just like, why are these very popular servants lacking in a costume? Who knows? Maybe this anniversary they'll just throw one her way. Just had to get that thought out there because it's been bugging me ever since I started writing this video. But anyway, let's start moving into some of her skills. And the first one is the aforementioned skill that actually just got buffed on JP not too long ago. If you're an NA player, you know this as the skill that allows you to just basically charge all of your NP, like over 100%. This effectively says get a crit on your arts card and refund 100%, if not much more NP, because you're doubling the hit. So that 0.87% natural NP gain stat is going to be pairing very nicely with effectively a 6-hit arts card, which is going to be really insane when backed up by crits. But the way they buffed this over on the JP version of the game is instead of it only being 1 turn, they made it 3 turns. They also made the increased damage when you normal attack also last for 3 turns, so your normal cards are going to be hitting a little bit harder. And then for some reason they were just like, you know what, also just give her 1,000 damage cut for 3 turns. So Musashi's also a little bit thicker now. We're still a little bit off from this buff hitting the NA version of the game, but it's really, really nice because not only is it really good for her NP gain, that's kind of the main way that you use it, but you could also really benefit using this on some of your other cards for maybe some star genning because she does have a star gen buff. And again, like I said, you want to get those crits, especially on the arts card where you have the double hits. And if you're really good at managing your cards, you might even be able to get a scenario where, let's say, on the first turn, you're able to get the complete, like, huge refund off that first arts card. And then when the cards reshuffle on that next turn or the third turn that the skill is up, you might find that arts card again if you're really managing when you pop this buff and if you're managing when and where you're seeing all of your cards. So you could potentially get effectively like two 100% batteries, which is really, really crazy. Again, also gives her extra damage on those normal face cards, which is really, really good. And it's kind of what just makes Musashi tick, because the other skills are good, yeah, but it's this whole double hits thing that I just think makes her really, really dummy broken. But yeah, that's the main thing that she's got going for her. Her second skill is just going to be a nice offensive buff. You're getting Pierce Invincibility for a turn, and you're getting a massive 50% Buster buff for one turn. This is very good on turns that you want to fire your NP, because you're going to be able to get around any dodges, any invincibility buffs the enemies have, and you're also going to do a massive amount of damage. God forbid you do this in a Buster Brave Chain and your face cards that follow the NP are also going to be doing insane damage as well. The only issue I really have with this, and that I've kind of noticed, like let's say when I was going through Lost Belt 7 on stream, I brought a friend Musashi for one of the battles that I will not name. I do not want to spoil it for my NA players. But there was a fight where I really wanted to use Musashi and see how good she would do, because who doesn't want to use a Musashi when they don't have their own? And one of the issues that I was finding is that in some of these longer drawn out fights, this can really hurt your damage a lot, because you can do one real big nice turn, but then after this buff wears off, your damage just severely goes down. And so I would like to see them maybe buff this in a way where maybe you could take advantage of it being like 3 instances of a Buster buff, so maybe you could extend the value, or maybe just like throw like an attack buff that lasts for like 3 turns, just so she doesn't completely lose out on all of her damage. I would like to see that for these more longer drawn out fights, but then again, maybe they just want Musashi's niche to be that she's a giant nuclear bomb that hits really, really hard, but you can only do that every so often. Maybe that's the balance they want to have with Musashi. I'm not really sure. You guys can let me know in the comments down below what you think about a potential buff on like maybe her second or the third skill over here, which is giving her invincibility for one turn, removing her own debuff, so very good for survivability. And then it also has that 30% crit star generation buff that I was talking about for 3 turns. Because you could double her hits, you could effectively have like a 6-hit quick card with this. You can drop some nice stars with it. Nothing super insane. She's not going to be like Jack or anything, but you can provide some stars, which is nice because she would like to do some crits on that arts card, namely. But yeah, overall, you can see that Musashi's just got a very, very solid kit, especially after they buff it. No things like crit damage or anything, but then again, that's not the biggest deal, because the main Buster supports in, say, like Merlin and Koyanskaya already offer stuff like that. They can give her the crit damage buff that she might be lacking in. But yeah, maybe they could give her that in the future. Maybe they could give her a skill where she can drop like 30 stars for herself and then give herself like a 30 to 50% crit damage buff. That could be really, really nice. But to also be fair, I think they put a lot of the points for the Musashi buff in her NP, because originally her NP wasn't super great. It was like, yeah, she gets like 20% NP damage whenever she fires, so it'll multiply into the second skill and give you really good damage when you fire it, but then you kind of lose that once the second skill goes away. You lose that multiplicative buff, but it does at least remove their buffs. But then they just said, nah, forget all that. Let's just go ahead and buff it so it gets higher damage scaling. We're going to buff that NP damage buff to 30%, so she does just even more damage as well. She's still going to remove their buffs, but then you know what? What if we just gave her a special damage mod against alter egos and moon cancers, right? For those of you that don't have Kama, you could just break out your Musashi, right? And just go absolutely ham taro and just smack people in the face with her. Now, not to start a debate or anything, but I do still prefer Kama as that kind of alter ego killing role, but it's really nice that Musashi is also just a different class depending on what the fight might be looking like. She's Buster instead of Quick in case there's some weird niche that the boss has. Maybe the boss resists Quick cards. And then it's also just nice because let's say you're fighting an alter ego. Musashi is a Saber, so she's going to naturally resist their damage, right? Because alter egos do ineffective damage towards Sabers as opposed to doing super effective towards Kama, who's an assassin. So there's some like good points to using Musashi. I just prefer Kama in that role. Again, not to start a debate or anything, but there's definitely really good points to bringing Musashi for that. I think just taking the resisted damage is very, very nice. And as you probably saw on the damage chart, she does insane amounts of damage. Like, Musashi is one of the most damaging servants in the entirety of the game. I mean, the only person she's losing out to in terms of just raw base damage is Jalter, which is really, really insane. But then as soon as you look at like her special damage mod damage, it just jumps through the roof, even as an NP1 servant. So yeah, she could definitely smack people really hard. And again, maybe that's why on the second skill, they've never really touched anything like that. They were like, nah, we don't want to give her any other like offensive buff to make it more consistent or anything, because she's already hitting hard enough. That being said, I think she just has a very well-designed kit. She's got a lot of really good stuff going for her. Yeah, sure, you can nitpick and say that there's no crit damage buff, or again, she only has the 1 turn offensive buff on the second skill, so as soon as that goes away, you really do see a massive drop in damage. But then again, your damage doesn't go too far down if you're fighting, like, say, a Moon Cancer or an Alter Ego, because you at least still get that special damage mod, you still get that NP damage buff on the NP. So that's kind of like a niche that a lot of people are using her for anyway, and so you might not even really notice the drop off on damage. So overall, very, very solid servant. Would I recommend summoning for Musashi over the Anniversary and the Lost Belt stuff? Personally, no, because as much as I want Musashi, like I said at the beginning, I've summoned on 3 of her banners, and I've gotten absolutely bodied every single time. But as much as I really want this servant, I can't deny that the Lost Belt 6, the Summer, and the Anniversary run that we're going to be getting, just all of those events back to back to back, are just too insane to not be saving up for. Those servants are just too good to not be investing like heavily into. But again, I know that Musashi is a lot of people's favorite servant. It's their main waifu character. So if you want to go for her for that, then by all means, I can't stop you, right? If they're your favorite character, like, what am I going to tell you to do? No, don't summon for your favorite character. Don't have fun with the game with your favorite person. Play for the meta, right? I always encourage people to not play for meta, and I want you guys to play with the servants that you guys want, but I'm still going to give you the meta answer. I'm going to tell you, like, hey man, this is not a good idea from a meta perspective, but I can't deny that this servant is very, very popular. They're also pretty good. And so it's hard for me to tell people that really like Musashi to not summon for their favorite servant. Just maybe go in moderation, maybe try to plan it out a little bit. If you can hold back a little bit, you can do like a couple of multis and then save the rest for Anniversary and stuff. That would probably be my best advice for people that really like Musashi. But then again, I know that people are like hardcore Musashi fans. They've probably already gone all in. But let me know if you were able to get Musashi down in the comments down below. I'd love to hear that at least some people that went and at least got her or something. And with that, I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace, late guys.